Great verses of the old book is in Psalm 119. And it says this: God is good and does only good. And I look back at his creation when he created, and it was good, and it was good, and it was very good. And that's kind of a confirmation of that verse. Now, in the Old Testament, we do see him sending plagues upon people and bringing things like that. But usually that was because God's wrath had been kindled against their rebellion. And so there was a judgment. But the thing we have to remember as New Testament believers is that the wrath of God was poured out on Jesus at the cross. And so I'm not going to sit there and say, this is judgment from God. What I'm going to say is that God is good in the storm. He may not be the cause of the storm, but he is good in the storm. And allow the storm to lead you to Jesus Christ, which is basically what Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12. You remember he had that thorn in the flesh, which incidentally he said was a messenger of Satan. It didn't come from God, but God said, I'm going to use that to keep you humble because you've had so much revelation, son. You're in danger of getting prideful. And I don't want you dependent on yourself. I want you dependent upon me. So you're going to keep that thorn. That wasn't mean. That wasn't harsh. That was an appointed end, as it says in the old book. I love that one great passage. Remember in Jeremiah 29, when Israel was suffering, and so they had these prophets show up and were saying, we're no longer God's people. God's people has abandoned us. God has abandoned us, and he's chosen another people. And God gets a little irate. He says to Jeremiah, who are those prophets? I didn't send them. Let me speak for me, which is great. And then he says, I know the thoughts that I have towards you, and they are really good. And I'm working to bring you to an appointed end. And so I think just like our emotions, we want to receive them. I think we want to receive this pandemic and say, okay, God, how do you want to use this in my life?